this holy day. We are having this bi-weekly sutra discussion. Let us begin the discussion by paying respect and homage to the Buddha. Let us recite Namo Tassa 3 times together. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. I pay my respect and homage to him, the Blessed One, the Worthy One, the fully enlightened Buddha. Okay, so it's such a great joy to see many venerables today for this bi-weekly sutra discussion, and also this is because I believe it's the vasa we have commenced yesterday, and all of you are stuck in one place for 3 months. So this is also good for us, so that we could have this bi-weekly discussion discussing the Dhamma. So before we get into the discussion, I would like to introduce our venerable monks to our audience. And so let me begin with, Bhante Jayasara. He's from journey from New Jersey. And we have Venerable Digale Somavangsha. He's joining the discussion from Vancouver, Canada. And then we have Venerable Shanta Sobana. He's joining the discussion from Los Angeles, California. And then we have Venerable Tridal. He's joining the discussion from Florida, USA. And then we have Venerable Bhante Sanat Vihari. He's joining the discussion from Los Angeles, California. Then we have Venerable Bhante Jinananda. He's joining the discussion from Ottawa, Canada. Then we have Venerable Kotobola Sumedha. He's joining the discussion from Toronto, Canada. And then we have Venerable Dhammalankara. You are joining the discussion from all the way from Sri Lanka, I guess, right? Yeah, Sri Lanka. Yes, Bhante. Yeah, early morning for you. And then we have Venerable Bhante Kusala. He is joining the discussion from Boston, USA. And I'm also very happy to see Venerable Bhikkhu Vasubandhu. You're from Phoenix, Arizona. And I know you joined a special discussion we had, a dialogue between the Buddhist and Buddhist tradition and Catholic tradition, organized by Toronto Area Interfaith Council. And today I'm very happy to see you. And so thank you for joining the discussion. And of course, we also have some lay devotees here, and you can see them on the screen. So today we are going to have the 82nd bi-weekly sutra discussion. And the topic of the discussion is embracing the timeless wisdom of the Buddha's Deer Park sermon. So although it is we call Deer Park sermon, but it is the first sermon delivered by the Buddha to the first group of monks, Panchavagya bhikkhus. And so I have just titled this discussion as the Embracing the Timeless Wisdom of the Buddha's Deer Park sermon. And I know we all know this sutra, but we can discuss this sutra in a very deeper way, and so for the greater understanding of the fundamental teachings of Buddhism. So to give us a summary of today's sutra, Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta, the discourse on the turning the wheel of life, or the Deer Park sermon, I would like to invite Venerable Kusala to give us the summary, and then we can get into the discussion. Venerable Kusala.
Thank you, Bante. And as you said, happy rains retreat to all the venerable ones who are taking the reins, and may your minds be always be free from the five hindrances and remain calm. With that intention, I know we are discussing the first sermon of the Buddha today. I like to also mention that when we discuss this sutta, it is in the Samyutta Nikaya. Please also combine two other suttas from Majjhima Nikaya. The number 26, the Noble Search, Ariya Pariyesana Sutta, and number 36, that is Mahasachaka Sutta, where we find details of his renunciation and what happened before he delivered his first sermon. So I will briefly go over some things before I come to the first sermon. In number 26, Ariya Pariyesana Sutta, this is called his noble search. He becomes enlightened and he makes a statement. He says, seeking the undefiled supreme security from bondage, Nibbana, I attain the undefiled supreme security from bondage. Nibbana, the knowledge and vision arose in me. My deliverance is unshakable. This is my last birth. Now there is no renewal of me. So after he realized this, with such 6 years of search, meeting two teachers who taught him some things, but he never settled there and finally discovered the ultimate freedom through his own investigation and effort. And upon realizing the noble truths and the dependent origination, he realized that this must be so hard for beings out there to understand this teaching. And he never looked out there in the world to see if there are beings who had the ability to understand this teaching. And this is then that Brahma Sahampati reads the mind of the Buddha and approaches the Buddha and make a statement saying that there are beings with little dust in their eyes and they are able to understand this teaching. At which point the Buddha scans the world with his divine eye and understand that there are beings who have little dust in their eyes and that he should actually teach the Dhamma. Having understood that with his own divine eye, then he wants to see who is the first person worthy of understanding or learning his Dhamma. And then he visits in his mind to Alara Kalama and Uddaka Buddha. And then he realizes that both of them have recently passed away. Then it occurs to him that he should teach the Dhamma to the 5 ascetics, Kondanya, Vappa, Bhaddya, Mahanama, and Assaji. These were his companions, but when what they were supporting was for the wrong view. Wrong view is that by self-mortification practices, toward the end of his last, perhaps the search, the noble search, during the 6 years, he didn't do self-mortification for 6 years alone because he did other practices. Although the tradition holds the view that he did self-mortification for 6 years, but he went through a gradual search process. And in that, those companions were with him toward the end, right before he decided to abandon the self-mortification practices. As soon as they learned that he abandoned the self-mortification practice, they left him. This is a great thing to dwell upon, that your friends are the ones who discourage you in any endeavor. you try to make it, they will say, no, you can't do it. This is not the right thing to do. And again, you have to have such conviction in your heart to follow what your mind really, really tells you. And that is what the ascetic Gautama did. And although they abandoned him, he decided to look for them and teach this Dhamma. Then he went on journeying toward where they were in Isipatana, where they happened to be at the time, and that too was discovered through his divine eye, as he says in Arya Pariyesana Sutta. But when he approached them, they were reluctant to welcome him.
I can't answer you guys yet
upon
because
seeing
I gotta
him
listen
approaching
first.
from the distance, they decided, well, we can give him a seat, but we are not going to take his bow, which is a tradition that monks practice when someone approaches the monastery. And if that monk is approaching from travels, they would receive the bowl and wash his feet or give water to wash his feet. They were reluctant to do that. But as the newly enlightened Buddha was approaching this place where the 5 ascetics were living, they could not hold their position. They had to approach the Buddha and receive the bowl. And this shows that there was something that before even verbal communication, there was something that they could witness happening or has happened, something different from the friend they saw before. But again, when the Buddha approached them, they addressed him as, in the position of a friend, because they were practicing meditation together. And the Buddha said, don't call me friend, I am the Tathagata, the one who has gone beyond that level. I have gone beyond the human level to the superhuman level. Although he had a human body, his understanding was superhuman. But they questioned him again. When we didn't see you attaining anything when you went through the self-mortification process, how can you claim that you have now become superhuman? And Buddha had to convince them through some talking. And it is then that they understood that he must have something new to say. And then they decided to pay attention to him. And it's toward the end of this Arya Pariyesana Sutta, we find that 2 monks went on arms round, 3 monks remained listening to the Buddha, or 3 monks went on arms round, and then 2 monks remained listening to the Buddha, and that way they were able to pay attention to what he had to say. So this is what he had to say, and this teaching is called setting in motion the wheel of the Dhamma, Dhamma Chakra. We always say meditation retreats, trust the wheel, trust the wheel. This is a common saying in meditation retreats. What we actually mean is that trust the Dhamma. So this is the wheel, the Dhamma Chakras. Dhamma Chakra is the wheel of Dhamma, and you have seen the wheel in Ashokan pillars in India. And this has become the, I think, emblem of India even now. Starting from the Ashokan pillar, it has become a cultural symbol. And the wheel of Dhamma has also become a jewelry piece that people wear. Buddhist people wear this like the cross that the Catholic people wear. So that is the wheel of Dhamma. And Pavattana is setting the wheel in motion. That means he let it spin and run forward. So Dhamma Chakra Pavattana, setting in motion the wheel of Dhamma. And this is in Sanyutta Nikaya 56:11. And when he taught this, the first thing he said was, because these 2 extremes should not be followed by monks. The 2 extremes, he has given the 2 extremes. the pursuit of sensual happiness. This is called Kama Sukha Allikami Yoga. Engaging in the attachment toward sensual pleasures. This is something he abandoned on the day he decided to renounce the life he had as a prince, a royal person. When he abandoned it, although his dad had other intentions, his father intended him to be a universal monarch. But the Bodhisattva, the one who was aspiring to be awakened, had other intentions. He wanted to be the realized one, the one who realized the truth about everything. Basically, the noble truth that we will touch upon soon. So he abandoned that extreme and he gave some adjectives. He said, these are low, vulgar, the way of worldlings, ignoble and unbeneficial. So hino, gammo, potu janiko, dukko, anariyo, anatta sankito. These are the adjectives he used to describe the pursuit of sensual pleasures. Then he mentioned the other extreme, which he himself followed, the pursuit of self-mortification. Atta kilamatahana yoga, giving suffering to one's physical body. And then he gave 3 adjectives. Dukkho, anaryo, anatta sankito. Painful, ignoble, unbeneficial. Having said that, he said, abandon both of these without veering towards either of these extremes. The Buddha, Tathagata, has awakened to the middle way, Majjhima Patipada, which gives rise to vision. So he introduces the middle way with these explanations. Chakku karani, jnana karani, upasamaya, abhinyaya, sambodhaya, samvattati. Gives rise to vision, gives rise to knowledge, leads to peace, to direct knowledge, to enlightenment, to nibbana. This is how he introduces the middle way. This is the first time such teaching was given in this world where we live. And it's amazing to revisit this sutta, and monks are so fond of this sutta. We chant this on this particular full moon day because the tradition knows that after his awakening on the full moon day in May, he traveled for nearly 1 month, and it is on the second full moon day that followed in after that month, that is the maybe the third full moon day, right? Not the second. Poson full moon passed, and this is the Asala full moon. And on that full moon day, he delivered this teaching. And then he described what the middle way is. The middle way is the Eightfold Path. And he placed right view as the first thing that people should come to. Because he was suffering a lot because he was misguided with the wrong view that giving self-mortification is the way to the moksha, the liberation. And he realized that it didn't work that way. So he placed the right view, not the wrong views, Samma Ditti, as the first thing that someone who wants to follow this path has to have. Having said that, he then explains the noble truths, the truth of suffering. He never said life is suffering, which is a misconception of the Buddhist teachings. He is here teaching the happiness and the highest happiness one can have. So please stop describing that the Buddha said life is suffering. That is not something he ever said. He looked at the entire cycle of samsara and pointed out how beings not knowing the truth can be entangled in this entire loop of entire cycle of samsara and he taught how to really break this cycle and have gain some peace. So the way he taught it is through the realization of the noble truths. These are called Arya Satyas, noble truths. The first truth is the truth of suffering. And he described what these are in his first sermon. He said, birth. This is in the entire cycle. Birth, aging, illness, death, union with what is displeasing, separation from what is pleasing, not to get what one wants, and in brief, 5 aggregates subject to clinging. These he named as suffering. In it, again, you never heard that life is suffering. He never said that. And then he said, what causes this kind of suffering for us beings? He said, tanha, craving. And he describes tanha with several descriptions. He said, this craving leads to renewed existence. Now you can place craving in a whole realm of existence, whether you are born as a heavenly being, or in the hell realm, or in a Brahma realm, or in any plane of existence. It is that he was talking about, renewed existence, accompanied by delight and lust. Nandi Raga Sahagato.
I'm so glad, but I'm sorry I can't talk right now.
Tatra
Just wanted to
Nandini.
do a shout out for
You
y'all.
want this, you want that. You want to be a divine form or this or that. And then he described the craving in 3 ways: Kama Tanha, Bhava Tanha, and Vibhava Tanha. Craving for sensual pleasures, craving for existence, and craving for extermination. And so what this means is that people think that this is the only life we have, and therefore some people tend to indulge in sensual pleasures as much as they can. And that is the belief they had at the time of the Buddha as well. They said, take a loan, and having taken a good loan, enjoy as much food as you can and die. You don't even have to pay loans. And that is kind of a misguided teaching. And craving for existence, wanting to exist forever. And craving for extermination is that knowing that life ends at a certain point, whether it is in this life or after a couple of lives. This is all you get, and then that also leads to misconceptions like you don't have to care for your parents, you don't have to care for your children, you don't have to care for karma, do anything you like. So it's such a disorganized way of living in the world and can be harmful to oneself and others. So the Buddha mentioned craving in various ways, but especially pointed out to this sensual pleasure cravings, craving for existence, and craving for extermination. And then he mentioned the third truth. This is amazing that craving can be overcome. That means there is cessation to this craving through development of the mind. And then he brought again the noble truths, the noble eightfold path, the Attangika Magga, as the way that leads one toward the full peace and toward Nibbana. And then he mentioned something very interesting, that until he understood the noble truth in its 3 aspects and 12 ways, he never declared in this world as the awakened one. So let us stop here for a moment to understand what these 3 aspects are. So, and 3 aspects and the 12 ways are. So with each truth, there are 4 truths here, and then there are things to be done with each truth, and that these things that has to be done are done. So this is how the 12 pieces come to the picture. That means you have the 4 truths and what should be done with them, and whatever should be done has been done by him. So he understood, for example, if you take the last truth, the last truth is the truth of the Eightfold Path, the way leading to the end of suffering. And with that, it is something to be cultivated. And then the knowledge arises in him that he has cultivated all the aspects of the Eightfold Path. So this is how you look at each truth, the truth itself and what should be done with it, and the fact that it has been done. So this is actually a guiding guiding leading way for us as well, that with each truth you got to understand that there is the truth and what should be done with it, and that you have done what should be done or what is recommended by the Buddha. And when you know that, you too will be touching what the Buddha has experienced. Having taught all of that, I think we can stop at each place and fully open this for other monks to add and contribute through the Noble Truth. Having taught all these, the sutta ultimately mentions that only one monk, that is Kondanya, who understood it in the first go. So in the assembly of monks, the Buddha only had 5 disciples when he gave his first sermon, and only one of them understood, and he became known as Anya Kondanya, the Kondanya who knew. And then he gives another sermon which is about non-self characteristics, Anatta Lakkhana Sutta, and upon listening to that teaching, all 5 of them became enlightened, and this went on until the Buddha lived for the remainder of his life for 45 years. And he taught Dhamma everywhere, and many millions of people became enlightened. And toward the end of this discourse, you see a happiness expressed by different deities, from the deities, earthly, heavenly beings, to the highest realm, and each hearing the rejoicing, sadhu kara, saying sadhu, sadhu, in one heaven, it is heard in other heavens, and it goes on to the highest heaven. And the radiance, some light is radiated across the universe without anyone's doing, and that is how much impact the Buddha made in this universe upon discovering this teaching, realizing it, and revealing it to the rest of the world. So we unpack this teaching today with so much conviction and so much saddha in our hearts, and also gratitude towards the Buddha for doing what he did and showing us a way to live happily in this human birth. Thank you, Bhante.
Amazing. Thank you, Bhante. Kusala, especially making a connection between the Deer Park sermon to the Arya Pariyasana Sutta, the discourse on the Noble Search, which we discussed 2 months ago. And Buddha made a journey, right? I think he was born in the month of May. He became enlightened in the month of May. And then he made a journey to this Saranath. And he delivered this his first sermon at the Deer Park, Migadai. That's why I think I call it the Deer Park sermon. And then you beautifully summarize the teachings found in the first sermon. So now here's a very open question that I would like to present to all the venerable monks, and of course, as I said, embracing the timeless wisdom of the Buddha's Dear Path sermon. So, what is this timeless wisdom that we are talking about, and how can we benefit from it, and how can apply this timeless wisdom found in the first sermon, Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta, into our day-to-day life? So I see two hands. So I know Bhante Jayasara normally leaves the discussion a bit early, and so so Venerable Tridham, just hang on. I know you raised the hand first. I would like to invite Venerable Jayasara from New Jersey. So what's in your mind, and how do you see this timeless wisdom found in the first sermon of the Buddha?
Thank you, Bhante, Venerable Mahasanghas and friends. So I guess for me, what really comes up mostly, in thinking about Dhammacakkappavattana is the joy and gratitude that the Buddha set forth the wheel of Dhamma so that I, on the other side of the planet, 2,600 years later, can learn the teachings and practice the teachings. So it's always, the sutta always brings up that kind of joy and gratitude. But I think one of the aspects of the timeless wisdom, I guess I would say, is something that I always pick up on when I read the sutta, and Bhante Kusala mentioned it briefly, but the Buddha gives a call to action, to use a modern term. There's a call to action with every noble truth. Right? There's something that you have to do. This is not something, this path, this practice is not something that you just hang around and that things magically happen. You actually have to do things. Right? So the first noble truth, dukkha, is to be fully understood. So you have to have that kind of grit and determination to investigate and to patiently endure your suffering, to understand it fully, so you can develop wisdom from that. Right? The second noble truth, the craving, tanha, is to be abandoned. Right? When we see it, when we have the wisdom of our suffering, then we naturally start to say, well, why don't I stop suffering? Let me abandon this craving. Third noble truth, nibbana, is to be realized. And the fourth noble truth is to be developed, as Bhante Kusala said. So this is a very practical teaching in this way. The Buddha says, okay, this is the truth, and you have to do something with it. You have to do something about it. And so it's not it's a very active thing. The Buddha is setting forth the wheel. The Buddha is pointing the way. But as it says in the suttas, Buddhas only point the way. We have to walk the path ourselves. So there's this wonderful, very practical aspect of this, where there is a job to do. Right? With every one of the Four Noble Truths, there's something to be done, so that you can do that. And I guess just before I end, I think the concept of the middle way, what I found, especially in dealing with Westerners and converts, people who aren't born Buddhists, there's a lot of confusion with this idea of the middle way. So it might be an interesting thing for Bhante to have a deeper discussion on that. There's in the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta, we have between the two extremes of hedonism and asceticism, but there's also the middle way is the dependent origination. There's different concepts that might be a worthy topic to help for clarity for people.
No, thank you, Venerable Jayasara. I think that's a very interesting question that I was also going to ask everyone. Now, of course, we understand the fact that Buddha says that's the very first advice given to everyone, right? In this sutta, he said, monks, just avoid the extremes. Don't follow an extreme, and embrace the middle way. So what is the significance of that teaching? But for me, I use this a lot in my counseling. but it would be nice for all of you. I know all of you are very learned Buddhist monastics, and you have degrees in psychology, psychotherapy. You're doing counseling. Maybe you have a different way of understanding this. So I would be very interested in listening to or learning your perspective. So
we like to hear it from you, Bhakti.
No, okay. Well, so well, this is subject to Venerable Kusal. This is subject to the open discussion, right? Of course, I can also add something into it. And so, okay, let's get into this discussion then. I see Venerable Tridal raise his hand first. So what's in your mind?
Most salutations to all of the most venerables present today. Happy Vasa to everyone. Like to say hello to all of the lay people, most noticeably Charlie, who's a champion attendee, always attending. I wanted to make everyone feel seen. And an honorable mention to Bhikkhu Vasu Bantu, who I got to meet in person, who is a very young monk and a champion in social advocation and justice and peace. He is the modern day, I would describe, the heritage of the Bhikkhu, no different than the book Heritage of the Bhikkhus, running around advocating for all of us to be equal and equal happiness and footing in the world. Thank you for choosing this wonderful, beautiful sutta, as this is key, central, and compressed from the 84,000 teachings into the Four Noble Truths. Lately, I've been activated to counsel groups and groups of families up north, and I've been back and forth to the state of Georgia and north of Florida. And this is real-time information with the current research that is being conducted and real-life clinical examples of these families. I find that teaching to kids the Four Noble Truths poses one of the most significant challenge a monk could ever face. Explaining the threefold training, which is Sila. And when I went through Sila, explaining to 10-year-olds, I said, no killing, don't kill a bug, don't steal, don't take what is not given to you, don't have any boyfriends or girlfriends until you have parents' permission. So I find having ingenious ways to help them understand, to simplify the Four Noble Truths. The days of the Buddha, things were simple. People lived simple. People were poor, simple. Old age, disease, decay, death was looming around the corner, and that it reminded people of their own mortality and the real nature of life quickly. The question become, how come modern day we have less and less arahants in the world, and how come it is so difficult for people to understand the Four Noble Truths? Now, I'm still a young monk entering the world after meditating for so long, and then counseling, and I always put this big blame on me, of people come, they listen to the Four Noble Truths. After the first or second Noble Truth, they tend to leave and never come back. So I always question myself. I'm like, I always question myself whether or not there's something wrong with my language, or the effective use of my language is being questioned over and over again. However, it is well founded after almost close to 10 years of teaching and preaching and counseling, that because people don't keep the precepts and engage into drama, clouds their judgment, clouds their ears, and clouds the mind. It is a different type of intoxicant rather than what is on the fifth intoxicants that we see in the precept. The intoxicant that we see here is, for example, information diet, the consumption of too much politics, the consumption of too much bad news, of junk news or too much TikTok, too much entertainment clouds the mind. And when one enters a monastery, one is unable to understand clearly what we're talking about, the ancient ways in describing dukkha, unsatisfactoriness, stressors of life, and so on. It makes the modern day monk having to dilute the vocabulary down to 10th grade level for the modern day adult to understand, or to start slow understanding of the word dukkha. Dukkha, as everyone knows, that it is very difficult to define, the most difficult word in the entire Pali, I would imagine. And so, that's one of the challenge. The other thing is that Gen X and Gen Millennials, which is my generation, now starting to realize the dangers of not realizing impermanence due to the attachment of either loved ones, people, places, or things. And people tend to wait until these things occur and happen for them to really hit rock bottom or close to rock bottom, in order to see that the teaching came to me a little too late and I have stepped on eggshells and thorns, stepping on thorns. So for those who have experienced such suffering, necessary suffering, in order to advance, grow, and evolve, is a good thing. Suffering can be awesome. Making sense and meaning in the word suffering should be a human's first and foremost primary task. And so I see that a lot. And hopefully, for those who haven't stepped on those types of thorns, understanding the Four Noble Truths can save you a lot of unnecessary headaches and more roses and laughter and smile in your life. So moving forward, I believe that as we internalize the advice here from the Office of the Wise, and all of us present here is from the Office of the Wise, the Theravadan Order and the Zen Order and elsewhere, that to live simply, to try to simplify your life. What makes life complicated is simple. And if anyone watch true crime from time to time, realizes how people get themselves in all sorts of mess with cheating on spouses and the relentless pursuit of accumulating more gold, money, bitcoins. It is those material things that really stack upon plate after plate, and you're unable to clear them, and by the time you reach us. So therefore, living simply and trying to simplify your life, letting go of things slowly and gradually, so that you can hear the Dhamma, so that you can be dust free, so that you can be stainless in the vision of Dhamma. And so I just wanted to just give a we got a wind blowing here. I apologize, but just wanted to give a pre-talk on that, so that it prepares people entering into the Dhamma for other venerables to explain. Thank you so much. I'd like to yield the floor to the rest of the monastics.
Yeah, thank you very much, Ridao. And actually, there's so much to learn from this timeless wisdom from this first sermon of the Buddha, and that we can apply this to our day-to-day life. I see there's a kind of a question asked by Venerable Bhante Sila, and he says, isn't the Four Noble Truths the way to look at any problem of the life, Bhantes and other friends? So this is something to discuss also. But let me see what I see. Three venerable monks raise their hands. First, Venerable Shanta Sobana from Los Angeles. What's in your mind? And how do you see this timeless wisdom of the first sermon of the Buddha?
Okay, thank you very much, Venerable Sirs. Actually, it is a very important sutra today that we we are talking here. Especially, I want to mention, because 2,600 years old, our venerable monks and sacrificed their lives and protect this Dhamma. And according to their time, and they have done their best. And today, I think bringing these sutras and discussion and having this kind of activities through this new science and technology is one of the way we protect these sutras, and at the same time we give it to the next generation. So I really appreciate that Bhante Saranapala keep doing this sutra discussion, and it is not easy. And at the same time, our venerable monks come here and giving their contribution, and always venerable Kusala giving the introduction, and one of the best introduction today. It's one of the best introduction today that I can see that. And all other monks and contribute, and because this is very important. Why today we don't have the Buddha, and we don't have anybody most of time to get the right meaning regarding this all the sutras. So it is important to have discussion and having this open discussion and contribute our point of view, because that is the only way now we can move forward. So especially when it comes to the sutras and understanding the Dharma, it is very important for all of us to know it's all depend on our language. What the language we know, it will help us to understand what the sutra say. But at the same time, as Venerable Jayasaro mentioned, some sutras that when it translate to English, and the deeper meaning little bit shift to different ideas. So we can see it in many ways. But when it comes to Majjhima Patipada, and most of time people try to find out it's a kind of like a balancing their outside actions. But here, more than the outside actions, it's deeply related to our self-centered intention. Because it's about what the Buddha mentioned, that the self-indulgence and self-modification. It's about self. So the self represents the intention. So maybe our action can be minor, or maybe our actions can be soft, but it may have a deeper intention with the self-centered, self-related ideas. So that is very important to see ourselves. And at the same time, when it comes to Samma, and we talk about, we mainly, most of time, everybody talk about it's a right view, right understanding, right mindfulness, like that. So the word, it's mostly in English word. It's not enough to explain what the Samma means. It's because that mostly basically in a conventional world, right and wrong, it's depending on comparison. So the comparison depend on the environment, could depend on the capacity, and depend on the understanding according to that person. And but when it comes to Dharma, it's not like that. There is another place that we use this Samma word, the Samma Sambuddha. In that place, it translates as perfect enlightenment. So it is not the kind of like a right enlightenment. It's about the perfect enlightenment. So like that, it is very important, whoever study that go into this original sutras and see the words and look around it and see what is the real message. Because otherwise, that what we see most of time nowadays, people are giving different interpretation, and according to their own understanding, and according to this conventional level of language. But the important thing when it comes to Dharma, this especially the Tripitaka, the sutras, it's give the Buddha's a deeper kind of like a very organic level of teaching. So it is very important for all of us to then know about the language. Maybe everybody can't learn the Pali, but still, when we want to learn about the sutras, it is very important to know the real, very authentic meaning of that word to get into the right understanding. And why it is important for nowadays, because as we know, within this 2,600 years, Buddhism went to many divisions. Theravada, Mahayana, and the Vajrayana, Tantrayana, that kind of things. And at the same time, even in the Theravada tradition, mainly they have different arguments about the Vipassana Dura and the Grantha Dura. So the academical level and the meditation level. But when it comes to the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta, from bottom, the top to bottom, it's the whole sutra mentioned. This whole division included to the path of Nibbana. So we can't stop, we can't kind of like divide the Dhamma, and we can't kind of like, it is okay for just to practice point of view or maybe to study. But when it comes to the Dhamma, it is very important to understand there are no divisions in Dhamma. It's basically, once the person want to get into understand the path, and when the person try to develop the wisdom and attain to the Nibbana, and that everything included to that path. Another thing is, especially what is important in nowadays, that this Dharma is not for everybody. One of the major mistakes we done, and we do most of time, we try to share even the Dharma, we believe that everybody should practice this. No, everybody can't practice this. Everybody cannot understand this. And so there are some people can understand. So even in this kind of environment we live here, and there are some people come with many reasons. So even though they come to learn Dhamma, we can't, according to their situations, maybe we have to teach something else. We can't directly tell, okay, this is what you have to practice. So another thing is, even though Buddha understood this path, that his pinnacle of this journey happened when the Venerable Kondanya understood this, what will happen. Because as we know, the Pacceka Buddha, they can understand the Dharma, but they can't express it to others. So when it comes to this, that even though we practice something, when we share it with others, when that other person understands it, that is where our practice going to become successful. So that is, I think, it is when it comes to this community of Sangha, it is very important, and it is a very special quality, because most of time we see that people, through the spiritual practice, most of time people try to build up followers. But here, when it comes to the Buddha's teaching, it is practitioners, not the followers. So practitioner, it depends on, according to that person, the understanding and the effort and the strength that the person put into its own practice. So especially today, that it is very important for all of us that because nowadays people try to practice meditation, and there are many kinds of meditation, but when it comes to the Buddha's teaching, we have to understand that it's very clearly give a deeper foundation for the teachings, and at the same time for the community of Sangha. This about attaining to Nibbana. This is not about just maintaining the samsara or maintaining the life. It is not about the happiness or satisfaction nowadays we look through this conventional world. It is about that getting to our liberation. On the way, you may experience that happiness and satisfaction, but still, when it comes to the deeper foundation, this is about our liberation. If the person focus to that, that will help to get out of the self-centered mind, and that will help him to go towards the right understanding. So that's what I want to contribute. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Venerable Shanta Sobala. And again, I would like to present this question to all of you. Now, as we are discussing the embracing the timeless wisdom of the Buddha's first sermon. Now, there are several aspects of timeless wisdom we can highlight, I guess, in this sutra if you carefully examine. So, few things actually came up. Well, of course, we did highlight the middle way, the Majjhima Patipada. That is one thing, and the Four Noble Truths. And could there be any other timeless wisdom that we can find from this first sermon? So keeping this in mind, and I know you have a lot of perspectives, your understanding, your insights, you're sharing. This is actually great. What just Venerable Shanta Sobala shared with us, and it's very practical wisdom that we are sharing with our audience. So next we see Bhante Jinananda from Ottawa, Canada. What's in your mind, Bhante Ji?
Thank you very much, Bhante Sanapal and everyone in the platform. This is the first discourse delivered by the Buddha after his enlightenment, and a nice line of words were given by Bhante Kusala. Why, when we read this discourse, we have to keep both Arya Pariyesana and Mahasachika Sutta, because the background of the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta are these two suttas. The thing I want to highlight is that with this sutta, the Buddha showcased the world that the second and the third, gems of the triple gem, because he attained to enlightenment on the full moon day of May. For 2 months, there was only one gem, that's only the Buddha. This is the first time he, started or formed the Dhamma and the Sangha at once. So this sutta highlights that. So that is the first highlighting point we can come forward. And the other thing is, we don't see the Buddha use Majjhima Patipada for the Noble Eightfold Path elsewhere after this discourse. So Majjhima Patipada, that particular 2 words, Majjhima Patipada, just one word, is used for the Noble Eightfold Path here for a reason, because he wanted to explain the nasty, very dangerous to extreme. And there he said, okay, leaving these 2 extremes, this is the path you should practice, is called Majjhima Patipada. What exactly Majjhima Patipada is? The Noble Eightfold Path. Right after, in all the discourses, he used Arya Attangika Magga. So that is another highlighting point we should keep in mind. The other thing is why we call noble for dukkha, because in translation and also in Pali terms, we say the noble truth of those dukkha or unsatisfactoriness or whatever. So we know that the dukkha is not noble at all. We know that the suffering is not going to be something interesting for any person. So this is one place we need to clarify. Dukkha is going to be here, according to the Buddha's elaboration, is universal. It is quite universal and common to each and every living beings in this vast universe. Starting from birth, and also sorrow, lamentation, pain, grief, old age, sicknesses, dying. This is quite equal to each and every living being. That's why it becomes a noble truth. At the same time, any person who understands the truth as with 3 aspects is going to be noble also. That's why they are called noble again. And then if you go through and if you research on these aspects carefully, you can understand how great the Four Noble Truth and which way he explained. Actually, he summarizes everything. If you look at the Mahatma Padopam Sutta, Venerable Sariputta says every teaching of the Buddha could be put into these Four Noble Truths. And we can see that from this first discourse, because Buddha wanted to declare that I found the truth. I became the self-enlightened Buddha, and this is what I did. This is what I realized. That is Four Noble Truths. So these are the highlighting things in this discourse, which we can elaborate later. And at last, I want to add this, that Venerable Kondanya firmly realized the Four Noble Truth along with Paticcasamuppada dependent origination, because the Four Noble Truth is not away from dependent co-origination. That is very important factor here, because there is suffering, and how suffering arises, this is the cause, and now we know the suffering is here because of a condition, and the condition should be eliminated by following these principles. So it's basis on the dependent co-origination, what we call Paticcasamuppada. So that Paticcasamuppada is being explained on the basis of Four Noble Truth is explained on the basis of Paticcasamuppada. That's why this discourse is going to be the most important one, and because it summarizes the entire teaching of the Buddha. That's why the Venerable Mukondanya got into first stage of enlightenment at the end of the discourse. So that is what the Buddha declared after the discourse. And Aryapariyasana Sutta and also Mahasatchika Sutta tells that this sutta, same content, is being explained by the Buddha many times for the other four monks, for them to attain to the first stage of enlightenment. So the first discourse is this, and it is uttered by the Buddha for the whole group of 5 months, and for several days, taking several days, Buddha delivered the same thing in a numerous ways for the whole 5 to become Sotapanna. So this is another important aspect, and that should be taken from the 2 background suttas, as Venerable Kusala explained. That's all I want to share, Bhante.
No, thank you. Actually, you highlighted few teachings, the important, the timeless wisdom found in this sutta, which that is what I was looking for. And one very first thing you highlighted was that first it was the Buddha, then the Dhamma, the Sangha. So how the triple gem are formed here we find that aspect of the teaching in the first sermon. That's very important one. So thank you so much for sharing your insights. Now I see Bhante Kusala raised his hand. What's in your mind, Bhante Kusala from Boston?
I wonder if Bhikkhu Vasubandhu like to speak before me, and
hear
from him.
Yeah. Bhikkhu Vasubandhu from Phoenix, Arizona, USA.
Thank you.
Yeah, this is your, I say, first time participating in this discussion. So what's in your mind, Bhikkhu Vasubandhu?
My heart is fully of gratitude. I really extend my deepest gratitude to each of you, most venerable ones, including Venerable Saranapala and Venerable Tridao, for your wisdom and your guidance. So in my heart is that we are here connected from very diverse parts of the world. I feel that we are united from our global Sangha. So this moment, this connection for me is a testament of the profound impact of Buddhism in our lives. We are all the time making history, shaping the present, and I feel right now is the future of Buddhism with these kind of connections. I feel that our Sangha, our community is so beautiful because the diversity is like a tapestry of diversity. We are part of very diverse perspectives and expressions. And I feel that each of them add richness to our shared experience. With this reflection, I'm connected very deeply that our Sangha is also multi-generational, full of wisdom and innovation. So for me as a young person, I'm part of the post-millennial generation. I'm part of the Generation Z. So I'm honored to learning from each of you and to having this connection on the teachings of the Buddha that create and confirm our commitment also to have good relationships with other diverse religions outside Buddhism. I feel that our commitment during these teachings is also how we are learning to live in harmony with all diversity of identities. So thank you so much, Bernos.
Thank you, Bhikkhu Vasubandhu. Actually, the name Vasubandhu is a great name in the Buddhist history. Very wise and intelligent, very smart. It's a great name in the Buddhist history. Very wise and intelligent, very smart. And I assume you also like him, and that's why you were given that special name, Bhikkhu Vasubandhu. Thank you so much for expressing your gratitude, your appreciation of this discussion. And of course, this is the amazing group of monks who join from different cities and countries and bring people from different countries to one platform to learn Dhamma. And they are greatly appreciating this unique discussion we do daily. Biweekly. So, Bhante Kusala, what's in your mind?
Yes, Bhante, I had to let Venerable Vasubandhu speak also because of the power of that name. How should I know how to? How can I speak with such a name ahead of me? It's great to hear your kind words, Venerable Vasubandhu. Yes, it took us 82 or so discussions to get this far. And yes, every time I appreciate Bhante Sarnapala for continuing this discussion. It's a unique quality. I think we have to be generous with our words today to mention that when he starts something, he just never give up. He just, whether it is only him speaking, he's ready. He's ready to go for 1 hour and a half by himself. And that is a unique quality. And I think that teaches us a big lesson that when you are the only one here, never be discouraged. Just continue your enthusiasm, and that way you do a great service. I think that is also the message of the first sermon of the Buddha. He never gave up on the five friends he had from before. And that if he gave up, I think Bhante Santasobana mentioned this, then we won't have this teaching. What is interesting to me also is that the first time I read the part in Arya Pariyesana Sutta, the Noble Search, that he was basically sitting with 3 monks and talking to them extensively. We don't have those discussions, unfortunately. And when he was speaking to 2 monks and 3 monks went on arms round, we don't have those discussions. When we look at the sutta, all we have is just the formula, the basic principles he highlighted. So say for example, you put yourself in a meditation retreat, and in that retreat, a monk gives a teaching every evening. But he also sits with you in the interview from the morning till the evening with each person. This part is lost. Basically, we don't hear that part in the sutta. So what we have is this sutta, and also the Satya Vibhanga Sutta, which is the exposition of truths, which you can also include in your discussions when you are discovering this teaching. That is just to say that you could add numerous other suttas to get the full picture of this. In this, we find the cessation of craving described in several words. Craving, tanha, the Buddha says, mutti analeyo chagru patini saggo. These are words that we need to stop at and understand. Mutti is freedom from this craving. Analeyo, take Himalaya, for example, where there is so much snow, therefore it is called Himalaya. So Analeya here is like no craving in your heart, because you freed your mind, muttied your mind from craving. Chago is letting go. This is something that we, I think Bhante Sila's question is about, can we practice the noble truths in day-to-day life? I think that is close to what he asked. Please correct me if I have forgotten that. Yes, we can practice letting go at any moment. The moment you let go, the Dhamma is so beautiful that it is immediately effective. You get the benefit of it. And then, Patinisako, you never go back to craving again. Patinisako, you do not associate with it again. It's such a very important teaching there. When I first heard it, I'm like, wow, he just didn't mention craving. He mentioned the way you can experience the freedom from it. Be free from it. Once you are free from craving, you are going to immediately understand the quality of Dhamma, which is called Sandittika. Right here, right now, you are going to experience the relief. You are relaxed. Your mind is not preoccupied with the tendencies of craving. And you start to live a life that is so happy. So it's definitely the greatest teaching ever in the universe. So with that, I would also continue on explaining a little story. I think there was a question about the middle way. What is middle way? I think this I may have mentioned before here. There is a story in Dhammapada. This is called the story of the empty-headed monk, Potila. He knew so much in so many suttas, but he never practiced. He had many students. He was so proud of his knowledge. One time when he went to pay respect to the Buddha addressed him as empty-headed Potila. And this is the compassionate-headed Potila. And this is the compassionate way the Buddha sparked mindfulness in him, and on that day itself, he was never offended. He knew the Buddha had good intentions. He abandoned his monastery, he abandoned his reputation and fame, he abandoned his students, and he went to a remote area where he found monks who were meditating, who were enlightened, and asked for teachings. And those monks said, you know so much. Why don't you practice? So this is not what he wanted, and so ultimately he ended up going to this novice monk who was very young but still enlightened. And this novice monk asked, are you willing to do anything I say? This is like, are you willing to abandon any extremes and come to the middle ground? And the way it is described in the story is that, I will ask you to do things, but you have to follow and prove that you are willing to take it seriously. And this monk, Potila, said, yes, I'm willing to do anything you say. And to test that, the novice monk asked him, walk into this is like coming to the middle ground. Out there it is muddy. So with his pristine robes, he walked into the middle of the pond and he stood there, up until his knees. He was in the muddied pond, in the center of it. This is the moment he showed that he is actually ready. He's super ready. And then the novice monk stopped him and said, okay, come out of your mud and listen to what I shall say. And the teaching was so simple. He said, suppose there is an anthill and a lizard enters into this anthill, and this anthill has 6 holes. How do you catch the lizard? And now it got some thinking. See, this teaching requires some reasoning out, some thinking. And this Venerable Portilla decided, let me think how to catch the lizard. I will close 5 holes and observe from one. Exactly, the novice monk said. And soon, Venerable Portilla was able to start from there and reach enlightenment. And the Buddha never called him empty-headed monk again. So this is a beautiful teaching, responding to that question, what is the middle way? Middle way there is, if you are in any depression, any suffering, any extreme attachment, addiction that you are dealing with, you must abandon them before you are ready to practice the teaching. If you visit the 4 foundations of mindfulness, the Satipatthana Sutta, this is Majjhima Nikaya, number 10. There it says, before even you establish mindfulness, you have to be a person who has it. How can you otherwise establish something you don't have it? Like Satima. Atapi Sampajano Satima, Vinaya Loke Apicca Domanassa. So Satima is being a person who has it, who has mindfulness. Then only you can begin to establish it in the 4 ways, 4 foundations. So that is also another way to approach coming to the middle ground. And in this discourse, in the first sermon of the Buddha says, Chakkung Udapadi. Chakku here is the eye, that is the mind eye, the truth. So people do try to analyze it in different ways, but here you see, when you practice meditation, it is not a kind of seeing with your eyes open. It is the kind of seeing that you see with your eyes closed. With your eyes closed, you are able to see the truth as it arises, dependently arising and dependently arising phenomena passing away almost immediately, instantaneously. This is something that requires, in order for you to see it, it requires the clarity of your mind. With mental clarity, you are able to see the links of dependent origination arising and ceasing, and then you will stop claiming that it is myself arising and myself passing away. There itself, you get the true conviction of the teaching that this is what the Buddha realized and that this is what he declared to this world. This is when he truly said, until he understood the noble truth, he never declared to the world that he became the Buddha. Because in the Noble Search, it says that when he collapsed due to self-mortification, others others started calling him an arahant. He is the Buddha. But he was not. He knew in his mind that he had not realized the truth. So it is in that way that he declared that these are noble truths. Noble truths because the noble ones before him, the previous Buddhas, understood it. And that they are noble truths because these lead a person to become noble, from the ordinary to the noble states. That this is the way that noble ones stepped into, and this is the way they walked, and this is the path they completed. Therefore, in many ways, this can be called a noble path. And the Buddha then declared, so long, bhikkhus, as my knowledge and vision of these 4 noble truths, as they really are, in their 3 phases and 12 aspects, Tiparivattang Dwadasakara was not thoroughly purified in this way, I did not claim to have awakened to the unsurpassed perfect enlightenment in this world. So, and there was that question about can we apply this to any problem in life? Yes. So I will bring a little story here. There was this lady who went to see her doctor, and said, my husband has an anger problem. And the doctor said, okay, there is a solution for this. Every time you see your husband getting angry, put some water into your mouth and start swishing. And that is what she did. And she went 2 weeks later and she said, how remarkable it is. Every time my husband gets angry, I put some water in my mouth and I start swishing, and his anger disappears. How does water does it? The doctor said, it is not the water doing it. It is you keeping your mouth shut. And that way, you are not aggravating that anger and you are not adding fuel to that anger. Therefore, anger naturally disappears. This is like Samma Sankappa. It all starts with our mind, right thoughts. Every moment we try to argue with another person, their hearts get distanced, that they may not find their way back to your heart. Love disappears, loving kindness disappears. Therefore, it starts with thoughts of non-cruelty, that means kindness and compassion. Thoughts of ill will, that means loving kindness. With these, your world, the home where you live, the mind home where you live, the body home where you live happen to be a very, very beautiful place. It all starts with right thoughts. So that
if
is
I get to talk again, you guys will get a kick out of this.
We can all agree upon.
Just wait for it.
And he mentioned in this line of describing each links of suffering, he mentions toward the end that in brief, Sankittena, Panchupadana Kanda Dukkha, that all 5 aggregates are suffering. And you might wonder how that can be. So this is the form aggregate, feelings aggregate, perceptions, volitional formations, and consciousness. These are heaps, big aggregates. They continuously change. And if anyone were to expect something permanent in something that arises and ceases immediately, then they are looking for suffering. This is why he mentioned briefly that these 5 aggregates are suffering, and I believe he may have described each aggregate to the 5 ascetics in detail until they fully understood their true nature. And to understand true nature, you need to fully understand and revisit again and again the 12 links of dependent origination. And the Buddha placed ignorance as the first link because not knowing it is the cause of all links and their presence, that they are present. Until you realize it, you are now in true knowledge. There you can say Vijja Udapad, true knowledge arose in you, which is not something that a pill or another person can do. You yourself need to practice the right samadhi, right cultivation of your mind. And through that, through the practice of the jhanas and right insight, tranquility, wisdom, and insight, and through meditation, you are able to reach that understanding. Thank you, Bhante.
Yeah, no, actually, you, Bhante Kusala, first of all, thank you so much for telling those stories. These are very interesting stories, very practical. I think stories explain or shed more lights into the practical wisdom, the timeless wisdom we are talking about from this sutra. So it's very important for us to understand all these aspects of the timeless wisdom that from different perspectives. So I'm very grateful to you for sharing those insights with our audience. And I also would like to go to Venerable Sanata Vihari from Los Angeles. I know Venerable Tridao, Venerable Shanta Sobana raised their hands. Before both of you, I would like to hear from Bhante Sanata Vihari. And how do you see the timeless wisdom of this sutra, this first sermon of the Buddha?
Vandana Bhante, Vandana to all the venerables. Yeah, so actually, Bhante Kusala right at the end, he really touched to the essence of it with Panchopadana Kanda. Right, the Upadana to the Panchakanda is really the source of our suffering when we begin to identify, personalize, cling, and become attached to these 5 khandas. Right, this is what we call me, myself, and my, and I. And as the Buddha pointed out, is this atta, this atman, right, this self-view that is causing all our suffering. The things in of themselves are not bad, right? Forms, feelings, perceptions, they're just the way they are. But it's our clinging and identifying with them that brings us all this dukkha. So I feel like that is really the core, because the core of all, even of lobha and dosa, is the moha. Right? First comes the moha, and because of moha comes lobha and dosa. So also this, I feel like, touches into paticca-samuppada, which is the experiential knowledge that the Buddha got under the Bodhi tree. But also what I find interesting, Bhante, about this teaching is that, from my reading of the suttas, it appears that the Buddha, his real knowledge was of the asavas, right? Like it seems like that was the 3rd knowledge of the asavas. And then in the sutta that we covered last meeting, he talks about the asavas together with the Four Noble Truths, right? So I don't know, it seems kind of maybe the Four Noble Truths is like some sort of like way of teaching about the asavas, right? Like some way to get people to understand the asavas without going directly deep into the actual core of what's suffering. And the asavas are very similar to tanha, right? Because we have like the kamasava, babasava, which is similar to kamatanha, babatanha. But instead of having, non-existence, we have ignorance, right? Jivasava instead of the other one. So that's a very interesting thing that I would like to do some more research on, and I would encourage everyone to look at the comparison between the asavas and the Four Noble Truths and comparing tanha with the asavas. Another thing, Bhante, is like, is this really the first teaching of the Buddha? There's many suttas that are before this, right? There's the Dona Sutta, there's the Loka Sutta, there's the Ayachana Sutta. There's so many more suttas that happened before the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta, right? So it's kind of interesting that we call it the first. I know the arguments for it, but it's very interesting.
That's actually very interesting.
Yeah.
We need to have another discussion on this.
Yes. That's it, Bhante. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sanata Vihari. So I see 2 more hands. Venerable Tridao, what's in your mind?
Thank you. I was going to surprise Venerable Sanata Vihari by dedicating this talk to him, the following words to him and to the late departed devotee that passed away in Orlando Monastery that I gave a eulogy at his funeral. During the funeral, I gave this powerful talk, and it was inspired by one of my teacher, Venerable Toai Khan, Vietnamese Theravada, His Eminence. And His Eminence states there's something about the word I believe. Tôi tin. Tôi is I, tin is I believe. And when I gave the eulogy about the Four Noble Truths, and this is what I believe. I believe in the Four Noble Truths. I believe the suffering, and I've seen it in my life and in the lives of other people. I believe the causes of it and know directly the causes of it. I believe that it can, in fact, come to an end. I believe that by following the Noble Eightfold Path, you can in fact experience peace in this very lifetime. That I believe. That all of us believe, all of us who are in robes, in different traditions of the Buddhist order, that is what we believe. So to provoke faith in people, and the purpose of this is to try to dismiss the lawyer in one's head. Because anytime when we review such in-depth teachings, there's always the devil's advocate in one's mind. But this we believe adamantly, and we continue to meditate on the Four Noble Truths. And some of us meditate weekly, and some of us meditate daily on the Four Noble Truths. And if you let it, and if you let it today, and if you let it happen, and if you just provoke faith, your life could change at the end of the totality of this talk tonight. Thank you for having me contribute again.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dell. And where was Shanta Sobana?
Thank you very much. And so, Venerable Sanatha Vihari mentioned about some other sutras. I think this is the first sutra that Buddha mentioned, that whole process from beginning to end. And maybe that's why another thing is the Venerable Konlanya understood it and start the community of Sangha. So maybe that's why this take as the first sutra. So, and other thing is Venerable this Bhante Jinananda mentioned about suffering. I think suffering is the key, because we all are trying to escape from suffering. That is where the samsara begins. So in case if anybody don't afraid for suffering, or if anybody enough suffer regarding something, that is the place the person going to attain to the Nibbana. So another thing is I want to mention, what is the lesson that we can gain out of this today. So as we know from the beginning, the five ascetics, they rejected the Buddha when he found the different path, and once he attained to the Buddhahood, he went back to them. So today we talk about the leadership, and a lot of people try to become a leader. I think one of the good quality of the leadership, once you come to the success, you have no rights or you have no that reason to count on whatever happened on the way in the journey. You cannot go back and revenge them. So you are a leader and you have to go forward and give the right place for the right people. I think that is one of the important things, because we see most of the countries, especially when it comes to politics, a lot of people, when they come to power, what they do, the first thing, they go and revenge from the people whoever on the way that gave the hard time. So one of the good example, Nelson Mandela, he was in prison 27 years, but when he went back to his country, he forgave everybody and gather everybody and start to build South Africa. I think that's kind of a lesson we can gain through this the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutra, the background of the Sutra, and we all can apply it in day-to-day life, especially all this young generation. And it is one of the good lessons. Once you come to success, don't count on the revenge, or don't go behind that whatever other people, and try to do your best for the future. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Venerable Shanta Soban. Actually, we have come to the end of the discussion. So I just would like to highlight some timeless wisdom found in the Deer Park sermon. And of course, Buddha's first advice, monks don't follow an extreme, because extremes are not profitable. They don't bring light. They don't help you achieve enlightenment. So it's follow the middle path, and that is very profitable, and it leads to deep knowledge and wisdom and enlightenment. And the Four Noble Truths, I think that's the timeless wisdom, the scientific method the Buddha presented to the world. Doctors, scientists, everybody, modern psychologists, psychotherapists, all are using this model. I find that the timeless wisdom of great benefit to humankind. And of course, then if he shows the way how to gain liberation, how to solve your own problems. That is very important for us to keep in mind. And then another timeless wisdom, I think, which we did not highlight, yang kinchi samudaya dhammang sabbanta nirodha dhammanti. If there is anything that has the nature of arising, all that has the nature of ceasing. I think this is another timeless wisdom that we see in this sutra. So I'm very grateful to all our venerable monks for sharing your timeless wisdom and insights with our audience. And I see there are some people who are highly appreciating this program. Thank you, Janaki, for your kindful comment, and thanks to all the venerable monks and the lay devotees, your kind support. Of course, this is, I always feel this, this is the best gift we can give to the world, and also for myself. Sabbarasam Dhammarasam Jinati, out of all the taste of Dhamma excels all other days. So I have felt that taste of Dhamma, and I would like to continue this. And with your presence makes it more beautiful. So I'm very grateful to you, and also the participation of our Dhamma friends from different countries, our lay people. Your presence in this platform gives more inspiration to our venerable monks to join the discussion and share their wisdom and tell you more stories. So I'm very thankful to all of you. So now I would like to invite Venerable Bhante Nanda from Long Island. Bhante Nanda, I wanted to introduce you to the audience, but since the discussion was going on, I did not want to interfere. So Bhante Nanda from Long Island, New York, would like to recite the Ovada Patimokkha verses for us.
Many blessings to you all, venerable monks and friends. Usalas upasampada Sajit pariyodapanam etang buddhan sasanam Kante paramang tapotitikka Nibbanang paramang vadanti buddha Nahi pappajito parupagati Samanoti parang vetayanto Anupavado anupagato Mattanyutaca bhattasmin Pantanca sayanasanam Adhicitteca ayogo Etang Buddhana sasanam.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Thank you, Bhante Nanda, for beautifully reciting the whole other Patimokkha verses. And in fact, it was very fruitful, a very productive, meaningful discussion we had in the very first day of the Vasa in the Theravada tradition. And I see how this is aligned with, we discussing the Dhamma, reciting the other Patimokkha verses. It gives us an opportunity to get closer to the Buddha mind. In fact, day before yesterday, Bhante Jinananda from Watu organized a Patimokkha recitation with all the monks, but I couldn't be there because I had to attend a Canadian authors the fair, the literary festival. So I was invited 2 months ago, so I had to skip that one. So, and all our venerable monks in Canada actually started the Vasa by doing the Patimokkha recitation. So we all are in line with the Buddha's teachings. I'm very grateful to all of you for joining this discussion. and you shared your wisdom, and our lay devotees are very happy, they're very pleased. And let us continue this discussion for the greater well-being of everyone. So at this moment, I'm wishing you nothing but all good health, and may all the blessings of the Buddha, Dhamma, the Sangha be with you always, and may Devas, celestial beings, continue to protect and guard all of you with the divine blessings for your health and safety. Sabbe satta bhavantu sukhitatta. May all sentient beings be well, happy, and peaceful. With this loving thought in mind, I would like to conclude today's 82nd Biweekly Sutta discussion, and I'm looking forward to seeing you again in 2 weeks' time. Until then, stay well and happy, and good night from Toronto, Canada. Bye-bye.